Hi, this is Dr. Michelle Richards. Welcome to the Dr. Joy Ask the Joy Doctor show. I am streaming live here to answer any questions that you have. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or if you are unable to make the program live, place your questions in the comment section of a post. Well, I'm here today to answer a few questions. I've had questions about therapy. Um, People talk about therapy generally, but they don't really understand the various types of therapy. So, the very first question is, what is the difference between individual and group therapy and family therapy and group therapy? So, the difference between individual and group therapy is that individual is a one-on-one where you face the therapist and yourself, and there are no other people involved. It provides coping strategies. It helps you to learn and grow. We set up goals and a treatment plan for that. I want to start over. Anybody out there? Say hello if you're out there. This is Dr. Richards. Welcome to the Ask the Joy Doctor show. Today, we're going to be talking about the types of therapy, not the models of therapy, but the types of therapy. I've been asked to distinguish the types. The very first question is, what's the difference between individual therapy and family therapy and group therapy? So, individual therapy is when one client and one therapist are talking together about the individual's problem. In all therapy, we set goals and a treatment plan after an assessment is completed. And then we work towards helping clients get the coping strategies and skills that they need. And there are various interventions that are used by therapists in all of these modalities. Family therapy is when more than one person in the family also joins the individual and therapist in therapy. So it could be a spouse, which is specifically called couple or marriage therapy, or it could be children along with the spouses, or it could be two adult siblings, or a adult child and her or his parent. So it could be various modalities. A lot of insurance companies will also honor family therapy between live-in partners and their offspring. What is group therapy? There are two types of group therapy. Group therapy can be multiple families in one group. So let's say you have a child who is acting out, and the parents get together and talk about the fact that their children are having difficulties and how can they best cope with that. So these may be strangers, but it may be mom and dad for all of the couples, or just mom. A lot of times it's just moms that come together, but these are multiple families within a group. At other times, it's just individuals who come to group. So I run a trauma group, and the individuals are complete strangers. They don't know each other, and but they connect really quickly because they have a common, um, not a common goal, but a common issue that they're dealing with. So that's the difference between individual, family, and group. The next question I have is, what is intensive therapy? That's a great question. What is intensive therapy? Intensive therapy is when a client and therapist work in a block of time. Usually, therapy is 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or 53 to 60 minutes. So, but if you wanted to do intensive therapy, you could do intensive therapy for half a day, or a whole day, or a weekend, or something like that. So, when more time is devoted at the onset of the problem. So I said it could be an individual working with a therapist, but it could also be a couple or a family. And that intensive therapy can use all of the different modalities of therapy. I think intensive therapy is exceptional for working with family conflict, especially for those who don't live in the same area. Um, Intensive therapy, typically the first hour is not covered by insurance. So the family, individual, or couple would have to pay the remaining fees for the session. Let's move to the next question. The next question is, what is the benefit of individual therapy? The benefit of individual therapy is that you get to work with a therapist one-on-one. That can be intense, not intensive, but it can be intense in that you can share secrets that you might not want others to hear. So if your spouse was there or if your siblings were there, you may not want them to hear some of the things you want to share with your therapist, and your therapist will keep them in his or her confidence. Another benefit of individual therapy is that you can go deeper in the work that you're doing with your therapist. Um, with couples therapy, you can get deep, but if you have some individual issues that you need to work on, sometimes you might have to go to individual therapy along with couples because there's not enough time to negotiate the issues with couples and also do the deep dive on the individual issues. So individual is great for working on something like that. Let's see. I'll put my glasses on. I can't see. It's just one-on-one. Others don't hear your disclosures, and you can get in depth. So I said everything. The next question is, what's the benefit of group therapy? I love group therapy. There are benefits and there are distractions or detractions from them. So the benefit is that you meet with people who are experiencing a similar issue or concern. Again, I mentioned my trauma group. Everyone in the group has had trauma. But as we worked, we have found that they also have issues with other relationships as well. So they bond very tightly. So the second benefit of group is that they connect really well because they have similarities with each other. The third benefit is that people often believe that they are the only ones that are experiencing that particular issue or concern. And with group therapy, they start to hear their own stories come out of the mouths of their fellow group members. And they're like, I'm not alone. And that is very helpful. That makes them feel like they're normal and they're not crazy. Because oftentimes people feel like they are crazy and they're the only ones that are feeling and thinking the same thing. Another benefit of group is that when you start to connect with each other, you will notice that some people are ahead of you and others are behind you in their growth. But it is inspiring for those who see that there is a potential for them to get to that place that the ones that are ahead are. They can aspire to it. They see that it can be done. So there are some people in the groups who serve as mentors. Others may serve as students and that role switches depending on what the topic is. That mentor might be weaker in some other area and the other person might be stronger and they get mentored. So it's a beautiful relationship. I like watching. Also, the benefit that I like watching is when one group member changes and all the other group members then start to aspire and maybe even compete a little bit to start doing their work so that they can change. So group is a very special format for therapy. The thing about group that sometimes you don't get to do super in-depth work. You can do in-depth work, but consider that some people are still reserved about what they want to share in group. So they may not get the full range of the benefits of group. You can if you share openly and honestly about what's going on with you and don't withhold. So that is the benefit of group. Let me ask the next question. What is the benefit of intensive therapy? Intensive therapy is beneficial for those who are in a time crunch. So maybe they have this day to work on it, but they'll be out of the country for 3 months. Or a family member is with whom they would like to do counseling is only going to be in town for the weekend, and they want to do the work with them. So sometimes it's about the fact that you have a limited time window for doing that work. Another issue that's beneficial is when there is a time urgency. So along with those scenarios that I mentioned, there could also be a time urgency. Let me say what I mean by time urgency. So time urgency means that they have a deadline for accomplishing the goal. So a couple may come in and do intensive therapy when they have a court date set to divorce and they want multiple sessions so that, well, longer sessions so they can get a lot done in a short period of time. So there may be a time urgency. Another benefit of intensive therapy is that individual therapy, group therapy, all of those are incremental, and they usually meet in increments of 1 or 2 times a week. But with intensive therapy, you can meet multiple hours in the day. So you can meet for 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours. You could meet for a few hours each day of the weekend, and you can get more accomplished. So if you've ever been in individual therapy and your therapist says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, our time is up," and you had something great that you wanted to say or work on, that could be a remedy. That could be remedied by intensive therapy. Again, intensive therapy, you can do any format, individual, couple, marriage, family, or group even. Yeah. Let's see if I have any other questions. I have a question about virtual therapy. Virtual therapy versus therapy face to face. Now, there is a felt difference when you are face to face with someone. You know, you can, I don't know, feel their respiration. You can smell them. I don't know. It's something different. You can shake their hand. You get a different sense of who they are, because we all have a phone persona and a online persona that we share, but I think something about our persona in person is different. But I found that even after a few sessions on virtual, or even after a few minutes on virtual, any facade that they have comes down, and people begin to just be real with you. The research says that individual therapy, pardon me, virtual therapy, and in-person therapy are synonymous. They are equally beneficial. There have not been found any differences. The thing that will happen though is when you're in individual therapy, maybe you can do exercises where you can stand up and touch and move around. With virtual therapy, that's a little harder. But virtual therapy has benefits because I can do a lot of things with virtual therapy that I cannot do with individual. For example, I'm blanking. So sometimes in individual therapy, virtual therapy, I will pull out a chalkboard and start working on a chalkboard, sharing memos, sending memos, messages back and forth. Um, I've become creative in especially in group, sending people to the chat group in pods so that they can talk with each other. And that's whereas we can break up, I guess we can break up into groups as well in person. So I found them equally useful. They're a little different, but they're different, but they're equal. So uh, it just pick your poison, whichever you feel is the best one for you. I actually am enjoying virtual a lot. Um, some of the things that I get to know people a little bit more intimately. I can't tell you how many dogs and cats I have met, and how clients are more comfortable around when they're at home and around their own things and their own dogs. Sometimes being at home can be a little bit distracting if you don't have a quiet place, or if there are people who might interrupt you. So that might be a difference. And in-person therapy, you would not necessarily have anyone interrupting you unless there was an emergency. Um, so Yeah, I think those are the main differences. But like I said, virtual therapy and in-person therapy are the same, pretty much the same. When I first started doing individual therapy, there's a technique that I do, and I worried that I would not be able to do it in person on virtual. And when I took courses and training, and it was pretty much the same. Just had to do a few modifications and was able to do it in person. So there you have it. So if you're considering individual therapy, couples therapy, family therapy, or even intensive therapy or group, um, just know that um, there are differences with them, but each equally effective in their own way and may even get at different things. But I found that people would benefit from all of those modalities. This has been Dr. Michelle Richards. I am the Joy Doctor, and this has been Ask the Joy Doctor show. If you would like to have your questions answered in the future, come on with us live and I'd be glad to answer it in the moment. Or you can drop a message in the comments section and I will look for those comments and answer your questions. Thanks for joining us today and have a blessed day. Take the time to discover your joy for life.